David Morrison owned 15 convenience stores across the city, but he hadn't stepped foot inside one of them in over 3 years. The 48-year-old entrepreneur had built his empire from a single struggling shop, working 18-hour days, stocking shelves and serving customers himself. But success had a way of creating distance. Now he operated from a corporate office, reviewing profit margins and expansion plans, while managers handled the day-to-day operations. Lately, though, something had been bothering him. Store number 7, his flagship location in downtown, was underperforming. Sales were down 22% over 6 months. Customer complaints had tripled. 2 managers had quit without explanation. His regional manager blamed the cashier, a young woman named Emma Chen, who'd been there for 2 years. "She's rude to customers, lazy, always on her phone," the report said. David had approved her termination, set to take effect next week. But something nagged at him, a memory of who he used to be, back when he knew every employee's name and story. So he made a decision that his corporate team thought was insane. He would go undercover as a delivery driver to see the truth for himself. David stood in front of his bathroom mirror, barely recognizing himself. He'd bought a cheap delivery company uniform from a costume shop and modified it to look authentic. His expensive watch was replaced with a $15 digital one. His usually styled hair was hidden under a worn baseball cap. He'd even grown out his beard for 2 weeks to change his appearance. His wife, Maria, watched from the doorway, shaking her head. "You really think this is necessary? You're the owner. Just go in and observe." David adjusted his cap, studying his transformed reflection. "That's exactly the problem. The moment I walk in as the owner, everyone performs. I'll see what they want me to see, not what's actually happening. Emma's about to lose her job based on second-hand reports. Don't I owe it to her and to myself to know if those reports are true?" Maria sighed, but smiled. "You're still that kid who started with 1 store and a dream, aren't it you? Just be careful. Sometimes the truth is harder than ignorance." David kissed her forehead and headed out, his heart pounding with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. Today, he would see his business through the eyes of the people who actually made it run. Store number 7 looked different from street level than it did in financial reports. David noticed immediately that the exterior needed paint, the parking lot had potholes, and the open sign flickered erratically. Inside was worse. Outdated fixtures, harsh fluorescent lighting with several bulbs burned out, and aisles that felt cramped and disorganized. When had this happened? He'd approved budgets for renovations, hadn't he? David grabbed a clipboard from his van, a prop he'd prepared with fake delivery forms, and walked inside. The bell above the door chimed, and he got his first look at Emma Chen. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 25, with tired eyes and a name tag that read, "Emma, here to help." She was helping an elderly customer find a specific medication, patiently reading labels and explaining differences between generic and brand names. "My vision isn't what it used to be," the old man said apologetically. Emma smiled warmly. "That's okay, Mr. Patterson. That's what I'm here for. This one has the same active ingredient, but costs $3 less. Will that work?" David felt his first flicker of doubt about the reports. This didn't look like a rude, lazy employee. This looked like someone who genuinely cared. David pretended to check his delivery forms while watching Emma work. After Mr. Patterson left, a woman with 2 young children came in, looking stressed and exhausted. The kids were arguing over a toy they'd seen, and the mother's frustration was visible. "Please, not today," she said quietly to them. Emma noticed and crouched down to the children's level. "Hey guys, I have a challenge for you. Can you help me count how many blue items are on that shelf over there? Whoever counts correctly gets a sticker." The kids immediately forgot about the toy and ran to count, giving their mother a moment of peace. The woman mouthed "thank you" to Emma, her eyes glistening. Emma just smiled and rang up the woman's purchases. Necessities, David noticed. Diapers, baby food, the cheapest bread. When the total came up, the woman's face fell. "Oh, I thought I had enough. Let me put back the—" Emma interrupted her. "Actually, we have a promotion today. Buy 3, get 20% off your total." She applied a discount code David didn't recognize from any corporate promotion. The woman paid and left, with tears of relief. David watched Emma pull a $20 bill from her own pocket and put it in the register to cover the discount she'd invented. For the next hour, David watched a pattern emerge. Emma wasn't just working, she was caring for an entire community. She knew regulars by name, remembered their preferences, asked about their families. When a teenager came in looking nervous and asking about job applications, Emma spent 15 minutes coaching him on how to fill it out properly, even though there were other customers waiting who nodded understandingly. She gave free coffee to a homeless man who came in to warm up, telling him the pot was going to waste anyway. She helped a young mother struggling with a stroller navigate the cramped aisles, then reorganized a shelf to make future navigation easier. Between customers, she restocked shelves, cleaned, and made the store as presentable as possible, despite its obvious need for renovation. She never once looked at her phone, despite the reports claiming otherwise. David was confused. Nothing he was seeing matched the complaints. Then his regional manager, Tom, walked in, and everything became clear. Tom didn't see David. The disguise was working. But David saw Tom's face change the moment he spotted Emma, his expression shifting to something cold and predatory. "Emma," Tom said loudly, his tone dripping with false authority. "Why are these shelves not fully stocked? I specifically told you to prioritize the beverage section." Emma looked up, and David saw her entire demeanor change. The warmth vanished, replaced by careful neutrality. "I did stock them, Mr. Harrison. I completed the beverage section during my opening shift. These are the grocery aisles, which are scheduled for tomorrow per the rotation schedule you approved." Tom walked over, deliberately knocking a few items off a shelf as he passed. "Don't talk back to me, and look at this mess. Someone's not doing their job properly." He turned to address the store as if there were a crowd, though only David and one other customer were present. "This is why the store's performance is suffering. Lazy employees who can't follow simple instructions." Emma's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Tom continued, "I'll be in the back office reviewing your time cards. I'm sure I'll find some discrepancies." He walked away, leaving Emma standing there, her hands clenched at her sides. The other customer, an older woman, approached Emma sympathetically. "That man is horrible to you. Why don't you report him?" Emma's smile was sad. "To whom? He's the regional manager. Who would believe me over him?" David's blood was boiling, but he maintained his delivery driver cover. He needed to see more. After Tom disappeared into the back office, David approached Emma with his clipboard. "Excuse me, miss, I need a signature for this delivery." Emma looked confused. "We're not expecting any deliveries today," David improvised quickly. "It says here, emergency inventory adjustment for store number 7. Your manager ordered it?" Emma sighed. "Mr. Harrison orders a lot of things without telling me." "Sure, where do I sign?" As she signed the fake form, David asked casually, "He seems pretty tough on you. Is he always like that?" Emma glanced toward the back office and lowered her voice. "You have no idea, but I need this job. I'm supporting my younger brother through college and my mom's medical bills." She stopped herself, as if realizing she was sharing too much with a stranger. "Sorry, you don't need to hear my problems. Thanks for the delivery." David's heart ached. This woman was working under harassment while supporting her family, and he'd been about to fire her based on her abuser's reports. He needed to understand the full scope of what was happening. David left the store but didn't go far. He parked his van where he could watch the entrance and started making calls. First to his head of HR. "Pull every complaint filed about Store No. 7 for the past year. Every single one." Then to his IT director. "I need access to Store No. 7 security footage, going back 6 months, and Tom Harrison's email and purchase orders." While waiting for the information, David saw something that made his stomach turn. Tom emerged from the store carrying 2 large bags of merchandise, expensive items, electronics, premium liquor. He loaded them into his personal car and drove away. David quickly snapped photos with his phone. 20 minutes later, his HR director called back. "Mr. Morrison, this is strange. We have dozens of customer complaints about store number 7, but none mention Emma Chen by name. They're all generic complaints about service and stock issues. However, I found something else. 5 complaints filed by Emma about Tom Harrison over the past year. Harassment, hostile work environment, inventory discrepancies. All of them were marked as resolved by Tom himself, since he's the regional manager handling HR issues for that district." David felt sick. Who investigates complaints when the regional manager is the one being complained about? His HR director was quiet. No one, apparently. The system failed. The IT director sent over the security footage, and David spent the evening reviewing it in his van. What he saw left him speechless. Tom had been systematically stealing from the store for months, loading merchandise into his car after Emma left, manipulating inventory records to hide the theft, taking cash from the register. But worse than the theft was how he treated Emma. The footage showed him berating her daily, sometimes for invented mistakes. There was a clip of him deliberately spilling a drink and forcing her to clean it while customers watched. Another showed him scheduling her for back-to-back shifts, giving her barely enough time to sleep. David saw Emma working through her lunch breaks, staying late to fix problems Tom created, helping customers with genuine kindness despite her exhaustion. He watched her cry in the storage room during a break, then compose herself and return to work with a smile. The rude, lazy employee of Tom's reports was actually a dedicated worker, being systematically abused and set up to take the fall for her manager's crimes. David's hands shook as he closed the laptop. He'd almost fired the wrong person. He'd almost let a thief and abuser cost him the best employee in his company. Tomorrow, everything would change. David arrived at store number 7 the next morning at 6 a.m., still in his delivery driver disguise, but with a very different purpose. He'd spent the night gathering evidence, security footage, financial records, inventory discrepancies, and Emma's unresolved harassment complaints. His lawyers had reviewed everything and confirmed what David already knew. Tom Harrison had stolen over $85,000 worth of merchandise and cash over 18 months, falsified reports to cover his tracks, and created a hostile work environment that violated multiple labor laws. David also brought backup, 2 police officers waiting in an unmarked car and his head of security. Emma was opening the store alone, as usual. She looked exhausted, moving through her routine with mechanical efficiency. When David entered, she managed a tired smile. "Morning delivery guy? Another surprise shipment?" David's heart broke seeing her try to maintain professionalism despite her obvious exhaustion. "Actually, I need to speak with you about something important." "Is your manager here?" Emma checked her watch. "Mr. Harrison usually comes in around 10 to supervise for an hour before disappearing again." "Why?" David was about to answer when Tom's car pulled into the parking lot. 3 hours earlier than his supposed schedule, he was returning to steal more, David realized. Perfect timing. Tom walked in carrying empty bags, heading straight for the storage room without acknowledging Emma. He didn't notice David at first, too focused on his theft operation. David followed him quietly to the storage room, watching as Tom began loading electronics into his bags, items that would be marked as damaged inventory in the system. "That's an interesting delivery method," David said from the doorway. Tom spun around, anger flashing across his face. "Who the hell are you? This is a restricted area." David pulled out his phone and started recording. "I'm a witness. Those items belong to the store. You're stealing them." Tom's face went red. "You're just a delivery driver. Get out before I have you arrested for trespassing." He advanced toward David threateningly. "Actually," David said calmly, removing his cap and fake beard, "I'm David Morrison, the owner of this store and your employer, and you're fired." Tom stopped mid-step, his face cycling through shock, recognition, and then calculation. "Mr. Morrison, this is a misunderstanding. I was moving damaged inventory to be processed." David cut him off. "I have 18 months of security footage showing you stealing. I have financial records proving you've embezzled $85,000, and I have Emma's harassment complaints that you buried." Tom's expression turned vicious. "Emma? That lazy bitch has been poisoning you against me. Everything I reported about her is true." Emma appeared in the doorway, having heard the commotion. Her eyes went wide, seeing David's true identity. You're Mr. Morrison?" David nodded, keeping his attention on Tom. "Emma, I need you to call the police. The number is—" Emma pulled out her phone. "Already calling." Tom lunged for her phone, but David stepped between them. Years of boxing practice kicked in as he blocked Tom's attempt. "Don't make this worse than it already is." Within minutes, the police David had already contacted arrived. They placed Tom in handcuffs while reading him his rights. Tom turned to Emma one last time, his face twisted with hatred. "You think you've won. You'll never prove anything. I'll destroy you in court." Emma's voice was quiet but steady. "You already tried to destroy me, every day for 2 years. But I documented everything. Screenshots of your messages, photos of the inventory you stole, recordings of your harassment. I kept records because I knew someday someone would finally listen." She looked at David. "I just didn't think it would be the owner pretending to be a delivery driver." David felt a surge of respect for this young woman who'd endured so much yet never gave up. As police led Tom away, David turned to Emma. "We need to talk, but first, I owe you an apology that's going to take more than words." After the police left, David closed the store and flipped the sign to "Closed for inventory." Emma stood by the counter, still processing everything that had just happened. David pulled up a chair and gestured for her to sit. "Emma, I need to start with an apology. I was about to fire you next week based on Tom's reports. I never questioned them, never investigated, never came to see for myself until it was almost too late. I failed you as an employer and as a human being." Emma's eyes widened. "You were going to fire me?" Her voice cracked slightly. "I worked 60-hour weeks. I covered shifts when others called in sick. I helped customers even when Tom sabotaged me daily. And you were going to fire me." David felt the weight of his failure crushing him. "Yes, because I was managing my business from a spreadsheet instead of actually being present. I saw declining numbers and believed the narrative Tom fed me. I forgot what it was like to work on the ground level, to know my employees as people rather than performance metrics." He pulled out a folder. "Tell me your story, Emma, the real one, not the version Tom wrote in his reports." Emma took a shaky breath and began. "I'm 26. I started working here 2 years ago after my father died suddenly. He left medical debt, over $200,000. My mother can't work because of her own health issues, and my younger brother Jake was accepted to engineering school. Someone had to hold the family together." She wiped away tears that were starting to fall. "This job paid better than retail alternatives, and the location meant I could work long hours when needed. The first year was fine. The previous manager was kind. Then Tom got promoted and everything changed." Her voice hardened with remembered pain. "He started harassing me immediately. Comments about my appearance, inappropriate texts, standing too close. When I reported it to HR, he was the one who handled the complaint. He told me I was misinterpreting friendly management and that if I pushed the issue, he'd make sure I was fired for cause, which would disqualify me from unemployment benefits." David felt rage building again. "Why didn't you quit?" Emma laughed bitterly. "And go where? I have no degree, a family depending on me, and a market where jobs like this have 50 applicants. Tom made sure I knew I was replaceable." Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. "So I endured it. Every insult, every impossible demand, every theft he committed while setting me up to take blame. I documented everything because I'm my father's daughter. He taught me to fight smart, not just hard. I knew eventually the truth would matter." She looked directly at David. "What broke me wasn't the harassment or the overwork. It was watching him steal from you while running this store into the ground, and knowing that when it finally collapsed, I'd be the one blamed. I love this store, Mr. Morrison. I love the customers who've become like family. Mr. Patterson with his medication, the struggling mom with 2 kids, the homeless man who just needs warmth and dignity. I stayed for them, even when every shift felt like torture. David sat in stunned silence. This woman had more integrity and dedication than anyone in his corporate office, and she'd been surviving a nightmare while he sat in meetings discussing expansion strategies. Emma, I don't know how to make this right, but I'm going to try. Starting now, things change. Not just for you, for this entire company. What you've survived shouldn't be possible in any workplace I own. Emma met his eyes, hope and skepticism warring in her expression. Actions speak louder than words, Mr. Morrison. Tom said a lot of things too. David stood up and pulled out his phone. You're right. So let me start with actions. He made the first call to his head of HR. Effective immediately, I want a full audit of every harassment complaint filed company-wide in the past 5 years. Any complaint where the accused was also the investigator gets reopened with external review. I want results in 2 weeks. Second call to his CFO. Emma Chen's salary is being adjusted retroactively. Calculate 2 years of overtime she should have been paid but wasn't, plus hazard compensation for hostile work environment. Wire it today. Third call to his construction manager. Store number 7 gets a complete renovation starting next week. New fixtures, lighting, paint, everything. Budget is whatever it takes to make it the flagship it should be. Emma watched in stunned silence as David systematically dismantled everything Tom had built. Fourth call to his legal team. Tom Harrison will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Also, I want an independent investigation into how our systems failed Emma Chen. Who else is suffering because we're not paying attention? He put down his phone and looked at Emma. That's the start. Now let's talk about your future. David sat back down, his expression serious. I want to offer you the position of regional manager, the job Tom held. You know these stores better than anyone, and you've proven you care about customers and employees. But Emma, I won't blame you if you tell me to go to hell and walk away. You've earned the right to never trust this company again. Emma stared at him, mouth open. Regional manager? Mr. Morrison, I don't have a college degree. I've never managed anything bigger than a single shift. Why would you? David interrupted gently. You managed to survive 2 years of systematic abuse while maintaining the highest customer satisfaction scores of any store in the region. Yes, I checked. You managed to help your customers, support your family, document evidence of crimes, and still show up every day with integrity intact. That's more management experience than most MBA graduates have. He pulled out a contract he'd had his assistant prepare that morning. Full benefits, company car, education reimbursement if you want that degree, and a salary triple what you're making now. You'll oversee 5 stores initially, including this one. You'll report directly to me, and I'll personally ensure you have the support and resources to succeed. Emma's hands trembled as she looked at the contract. This is real. This isn't some guilt-driven gesture that'll disappear in a month. David shook his head. I'm not offering this because I feel guilty, though I absolutely do. I'm offering it because I watched you for 2 days and saw leadership qualities I couldn't teach someone in a year of training. You know what customers need. You understand ground-level operations. You care about people, not just profits. That's what this company needs. Emma was quiet for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she looked up. I'll accept on one condition. I want authority to implement a direct reporting system where any employee can flag issues anonymously to the owner level. No more complaints dying with the regional manager. And I want quarterly store visits from corporate leadership, not announced inspections where everyone performs, but real visits where you actually talk to employees and customers. David felt a smile spread across his face. She was already thinking like a leader, already working to fix the system that failed her. Done. When can you start? Emma wiped her tears and stood up, her exhausted posture transforming into something stronger. I've been leading this store for 2 years, while Tom took credit. I've already started, Mr. Morrison. Now, I just have official permission. Emma's first week as regional manager was both exhilarating and overwhelming. David assigned her a mentor, Patricia, a seasoned executive who'd risen through the ranks herself and understood the challenges Emma would face. Patricia was direct but supportive. "You'll get pushback," she warned during their first meeting. "Some managers have been here 10 years, and suddenly they're reporting to someone half their age who was a cashier last week. They'll test you, question you, and wait for you to fail." Emma nodded, having expected this. "How do I handle it?" Patricia smiled. "The same way you survived Tom, with competence, documentation, and refusing to play their political games. Be fair but firm. Listen before deciding. And remember, you earned this position. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise." Emma's first challenge came at the regional managers' meeting. 5 store managers sat around the conference table, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Robert, manager of store number 3, spoke first. "No offense, Emma, but you've never managed a store. We've got a combined 60 years of experience. What exactly are you going to teach us?" Emma met his eyes calmly. She'd prepared for this. "You're absolutely right, Robert. I've never had the title of manager before, but I have 2 years of experience doing your job while being actively sabotaged." She opened her laptop and displayed store number 7's metrics. This store had a 22% sales decline over 6 months under Tom's management. In the week since I officially took over, we're up 9%. Customer satisfaction scores that were at 2.8 stars are now at 4.6. Want to know how? The room went quiet, attention focused. Emma continued. "I hired 2 part-time employees to proper coverage, installed better lighting that was already in the budget but never ordered, and implemented a customer loyalty program using free software. Total cost, $800 monthly. Projected annual revenue increase, $180,000. She looked around the table. "I'm not here to tell you how to run your stores. You know your locations better than I do. I'm here to listen to what you need, remove obstacles Tom created, and make sure you have resources to succeed. But I'm also here to hold everyone accountable, including myself, to standards that actually serve our customers and employees." Robert leaned back, his hostility fading into grudging respect. "All right, you've got my attention." Over the next month, Emma visited each store in her region, not as an inspector but as a listener. She worked shifts alongside cashiers, talked to customers, identified problems that looked different from the ground level than they did in reports. At store number 12, she discovered the manager was cutting employee hours to meet budget targets, causing understaffing that drove customers away. "Short-term savings, long-term losses," Emma told him. "Hire properly or I'll find someone who will." At store number 9, she found a brilliant assistant manager who'd been passed over for promotion 3 times because she lacked presence, code for being quiet and female. Emma promoted her immediately. At store number 15, she uncovered another theft operation, smaller than Tom's, but still significant. She reported it to David, who praised her vigilance. But Emma's biggest innovation came from remembering her own struggle. She created the Employee Voice program, a direct, anonymous channel where any worker could report issues, suggest ideas, or ask for help. The response was overwhelming. Within 2 weeks, they'd received over 100 messages revealing problems that managers either didn't see or didn't care about. Emma addressed each one personally, transforming complaints into solutions and ideas into implementation. She was doing more than managing. She was healing a system that had been broken long before Tom. The crisis came on a Friday evening 3 months into Emma's tenure. She was at store number 7, training a new assistant manager when her phone exploded with messages. Store number 4 had been robbed at gunpoint. 2 employees were shaken but physically unharmed. The robber had escaped with $3,000 from the register and the store's safe. Emma's heart raced as she called 911, then David, then drove to store number 4 at speeds she'd later regret. When she arrived, police were already there, taking statements from the traumatized employees. Jasmine, a 19-year-old college student, and Marcus, a father of 3 working night shifts. Both were crying, holding coffee cups with shaking hands. The store manager, an older man named Bill, stood off to the side looking shell-shocked. Emma went to her employees first, not the police, not the damage assessment, the people. "Are you hurt?" she asked, kneeling beside Jasmine. The girl shook her head, unable to speak. "You did everything right," Emma said firmly. "Money is replaceable. You are not. I'm so proud of how you handled this." She turned to Marcus. "Take all the time you need. Paid leave, counseling, whatever helps. Your job is secure, and your safety matters more than anything." David arrived 20 minutes later with the company's crisis management team, lawyers, and security consultants. They immediately began discussing liability, insurance claims, and security protocol failures. Emma pulled David aside. "We need to close all stores an hour earlier until we can upgrade security. These night shifts are too dangerous, and I won't risk my people." David's lawyer interrupted. "That would cost approximately $40,000 weekly in lost revenue. We should assess." Emma turned on him, her voice steel. "Assess what? How much an employee's life is worth? This happened because we prioritize profits over safety. Store number 4 hasn't had a security system upgrade in 8 years. The cameras are fake. Yes, fake, because it was cheaper than real ones. The safe is visible from the entrance, practically advertising there's cash to steal. We created this situation through negligence." She looked at David. "You put me in charge of these stores. I'm telling you, we close early and upgrade security, or I quit and take this story public. Your choice." The room went silent. David's lawyers looked horrified. The crisis team seemed ready to argue, but David smiled. Actually smiled. "Do it. All of it. Emma's right. Close early, upgrade everything, and bill it to my personal account if the company balks." Over the next week, Emma worked 18-hour days implementing changes. She hired a top security firm to assess all 15 stores. They found that 7 locations had outdated or non-functional security systems. Tom and other managers had been pocketing upgrade budgets for years. Emma authorized $200,000 in immediate improvements, real cameras, panic buttons, time-delayed safes, improved lighting, and security training for all employees. She also instituted a policy that no one worked alone during opening or closing. But the robbery had revealed something deeper. Her employees were scared, not just of robberies, but of retaliation for speaking up, of being fired for minor mistakes, of a culture where their safety came second to profits. Emma called an all-staff meeting across all 15 stores, mandatory attendance, paid time. Over 200 employees gathered in a rented conference hall, curious and nervous. Emma took the stage, no notes, just honesty. "3 months ago, I was where many of you are, overworked, undervalued, and convinced that speaking up would cost me everything. I survived harassment because I had no choice, but Jasmine and Marcus could have died because we prioritized money over people. That ends now, not just in words, in actions." Emma's voice filled the conference hall, steady despite her nerves. "I'm implementing new policies effective immediately. First, any employee can refuse to work alone without penalty. Second, all security concerns get addressed within 48 hours, not filed away and forgotten. Third, the employee voice program is expanding. Every message gets a response within 3 business days, and I personally review every single one." She paused, making eye contact with faces throughout the crowd. "But policies are just words on paper if the culture doesn't change. So here's what else is happening. I'm visiting every store monthly, not as an inspector, but as someone who remembers what it's like to be afraid your manager will destroy you for speaking truth. Mr. Morrison is implementing quarterly town halls where any employee can ask him anything directly. We're creating an independent ethics hotline run by a third party, not by managers who might be the problem." The room was absolutely silent, 200 people hanging on every word. "Some of you are thinking this sounds too good to be true. I thought that too. But Mr. Morrison proved through actions, not promises, that change is possible. Now it's my turn to prove it to you," Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. "I want to tell you about someone I met during my store visits. Her name is Sarah, and she works at store number 9. She came to me through employee voice, terrified, saying her manager was scheduling her for shifts that conflicted with her custody agreement, threatening her job if she complained. She was choosing between keeping her job and keeping her children. The room shifted uncomfortably. Clearly, many people had similar stories. I investigated. Her manager was doing this deliberately because Sarah had refused his advances. He's no longer with the company. Sarah now has a flexible schedule and is being trained for a supervisor position. Emma's eyes swept the room. How many of you have stories like Sarah's? Stories of harassment, discrimination, impossible choices, or abuse of power? Slowly, tentatively, hands began rising. 1, then 5, then 20, then over half the room. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, but kept her voice firm. This is why we're here, because every single raised hand represents a failure of the system I'm now responsible for fixing. I can't undo what happened to you, but I can make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. After the meeting, something remarkable happened. Employees didn't just leave. They approached Emma in waves, sharing stories, offering ideas, volunteering to help implement changes. The employee voice system received 63 new messages that night alone. Over the following months, Emma's leadership transformed the entire region. Store number 7, once the worst performer, became the highest-grossing location. The other stores followed suit as Emma's practices spread. Turnover dropped by 54%. Customer satisfaction scores reached company records. Most importantly, employees started referring friends and family to work there, the ultimate vote of confidence. David expanded Emma's territory from 5 stores to all 15, then asked her to help develop the company's nationwide training program. Media outlets caught wind of the story. Former cashier turned regional manager revolutionizes retail culture, and suddenly Emma was being invited to speak at business conferences, but she never forgot where she came from. Every month, without fail, she worked a shift at store number 7, restocking shelves and serving customers alongside the people she led. It kept her grounded, reminded her what really mattered, and ensured she never became the kind of leader who managed from a distance. 1 year after David disguised himself as a delivery driver, he stood in the fully renovated store number 7 during its grand reopening celebration. The transformation was stunning. Bright LED lighting, modern fixtures, wide aisles, and a community board where customers could post thank you notes to employees. But the real transformation wasn't visible in the renovation. It was in the faces of the employees working there, people who smiled genuinely because they felt valued rather than afraid. David watched Emma cut the ribbon, surrounded by her team, her brother Jake, now a sophomore in engineering, and her mother, recovered from surgery that the company's improved health insurance had covered. Mr. Patterson was there too, along with the struggling mom with 2 kids, the homeless man who Emma still gave free coffee to, and dozens of other customers whose lives had been touched by one woman's refusal to let cruelty win. David's wife, Maria, squeezed his hand. "You almost fired her," she whispered. "You almost missed all of this." David nodded, the weight of that near mistake still heavy. "I know. I was managing a business without understanding it. I'd forgotten that companies aren't built on spreadsheets. They're built on people." During the celebration, David gave a speech he'd written himself. No corporate communications team polishing his words. "A year ago, I thought I knew my business. I knew profit margins, expansion strategies, and market positioning, but I didn't know my employees. I didn't know their struggles, their dedication, or their extraordinary capacity for kindness in the face of adversity." He gestured to Emma. "I came to this store, disguised as a delivery driver, to test an employee I'd been told was failing. What I discovered left me speechless. Not because she was failing, but because she was succeeding beyond anything I'd understood success to mean. Emma Chen taught me that leadership isn't about authority or titles. It's about integrity, empathy, and the courage to do what's right, even when it costs you everything. The crowd applauded, but David wasn't finished. Tom Harrison is now in prison, serving 5 years for embezzlement and harassment. But his real crime wasn't stealing money. It was stealing dignity from people who deserved better. And my crime was being so removed from my own business that I nearly made his victim pay for his sins. After the speeches, Emma found David in a quiet corner, both of them escaping the crowd for a moment. "Thank you," she said simply, "for giving me a chance when you had every corporate reason not to." David shook his head. "Emma, I didn't give you a chance. You took it. You survived 2 years of hell and still showed up every day with kindness and integrity. You documented everything when you had no guarantee anyone would ever listen. You asked for systemic change instead of personal reward. I just finally did what I should have done years ago. Paid attention." Emma smiled, but her expression was thoughtful. "You know what the craziest part is? If Tom hadn't been so terrible, if you hadn't gone undercover, I'd probably still be a cashier. Sometimes the worst experiences lead to the best opportunities." David considered that. "Maybe. Or maybe your qualities would have surfaced eventually. Integrity doesn't stay hidden forever. It just takes someone willing to look past their assumptions to see it." He pulled out an envelope. "Speaking of opportunities, I have something for you." Emma opened the envelope and found a contract. "Vice President of Operations for the entire company. Mr. Morrison, I've only been a regional manager for a year. There are people with decades more experience." David interrupted gently. "Experience doing what? Maintaining systems that allowed people like Tom to thrive? Emma, in 1 year you've transformed 15 stores, reduced turnover across the company by 31%, and created programs that 3 other retail chains are now trying to copy. You've been featured in business journals as an example of leadership done right. More importantly, every employee survey mentions you by name as the reason they feel safe coming to work." He smiled. "I started this company working in a store just like this one. I forgot what that felt like until you reminded me. Now I need someone at the executive level who never forgets, who keeps us grounded in the reality of what it means to serve customers and value employees. That's you." Emma looked at the contract, at the store around her, at the life she'd built from survival and integrity. "My dad used to say that the hardest right is better than the easiest wrong. I almost gave up so many times, Mr. Morrison. But I remembered that, and I kept going." She looked up at David, decision made. "I accept, on one condition. You never stop doing surprise visits. The moment we get comfortable in our offices is the moment we stop seeing the truth." David laughed and shook her hand. "Deal. Though next time I'm skipping the fake beard. That thing was incredibly itchy." As they returned to the celebration, David reflected on the journey that started with a disguise and a test. He'd gone looking to catch an employee failing. Instead, he'd discovered someone succeeding in ways that transformed everything he thought he knew about leadership, business, and what it meant to build something that actually mattered.